Okay, so get this, right? We're scrolling through these online forums, the usual mix of, tech talk and conspiracy theories. But then, bam, someone pops up claiming they're from 2155. Yeah, like over 200 years in the future. You think it's a joke, right? Some elaborate prank. But then this guy, he starts dropping these details. Like, he'll be talking about, I don't know, the frustration of trying to repair a vintage smartphone, which, fair enough, we've all been there. But then he casually mentions witnessing a global blackout, total communications collapse caused by this massive solar flare, and he even pinpoints the year 2065. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. He's got predictions about everything from climate change to, get this, the rise of neural interfacing. I'm picturing something straight out of The Matrix.
Well, it's certainly a captivating narrative.
Yeah.
You've got this blend of futurism, anxiety, and even a touch of nostalgia. I mean, who hasn't looked back at old tech and thought, how did we ever live like that? Now, whether this individual is genuinely from the future or simply a master storyteller is a question we'll have to unpack carefully. But what I find particularly interesting is how his claims tap into this very human fascination with time travel, this desire to peek behind the curtain of what's to come and perhaps what we might learn from it.
It's like, are we drawn to these stories because they offer a sense of control in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable? Or is it something more primal, a yearning for knowledge, for a glimpse of destiny? Either way, we've got our work cut out for us today. So, okay, we've got this guy, right, dropping these, I don't know, cryptic warnings about the future.
Yeah, and he's not exactly subtle about it either.
No, not at all. Jumps right into these forum threads, throws out these like bombshells about the reckoning or the great unraveling. It's kind of terrifying, actually. Like, what has this guy seen that makes him so, I don't know, ominous?
Well, and let's not forget, he contrasts those dire predictions with, like, an encyclopedic knowledge of 80s pop culture. It's like he's straddling these two completely different realities. One foot in a future we can only imagine, the other firmly planted in the nostalgia of our past.
Okay, so speaking of the future, let's talk about that global blackout he mentioned. The one in 2065 caused by, what was it, a massive solar flare? I mean, how worried should we actually be?
Well, solar flares are a real phenomenon. We've seen them disrupt communications, even knock out power grids right now in our time.
Right, but this blackout he describes, it's on a whole other level, like total global communications collapse.
Yeah, and while a flare of that magnitude isn't impossible, predicting it that far in advance is beyond our current scientific capabilities.
Okay, so maybe he's a little off on the timing. But what about the technology? He talks about this thing called neural interfacing. Is that even a real thing?
It's an intriguing concept, that's for sure. He describes a future where communication transcends the limitations of language, where thoughts and emotions are exchanged directly, mind to mind.
Wait, so like actual mind-reading technology? Because that's either incredibly cool or seriously creepy, depending on how you look at it.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, imagine a world without language barriers, where understanding is instantaneous and complete. But on the other hand, it raises questions about privacy, about consent, about the very nature of individual thought.
And the thing is, it's not just science fiction anymore. I mean, researchers are already making strides in brain-computer interface technology. People with paralysis can control robotic limbs with their thoughts. It's still early days, but who knows what's possible in the next century.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're forced to confront not only the plausibility of his claims, but also the ethical and societal implications of such advancements.
You know, it's funny, you'd think a time traveler would have this whole internet thing figured out, but this guy, he's like a bull in a china shop in these online forums.
Yeah, it's kind of endearing, actually. Like he stumbled into this whole etiquette minefield.
Totally. He drops these, like, major pronouncements about the future, but then he completely misses the mark on basic online decorum, like forgetting to use a spoiler tag or something.
It's like he's still trying to navigate the social norms of dial-up BBSs or something.
Right. Like, dude, this is the internet age. We've got memes and flame wars and everything in between. It's a delicate ecosystem.
Maybe that's part of it, though. Maybe in his time, communication is so streamlined, so instantaneous, that the nuances of online interaction have become obsolete.
So, like, no more misunderstandings, no more internet trolls, sign me up.
Well, it's an interesting thought, isn't it? What would happen to our online world if we could communicate with that level of clarity and transparency?
It's mind-blowing, really. But let's get back to those cryptic warnings for a sec. Because it's not all fun and games with this guy. He talks about the reckoning, the great unraveling, even mentions something called the quantum rift. It's kind of unsettling.
There's definitely a sense of foreboding in those messages. Like he's carrying the weight of some heavy knowledge from the future.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, what kind of future has he seen that makes him swing between geeking out about retro video games and dropping these ominous warnings? So what's the verdict? Time traveler, master storyteller, or maybe a little bit of both?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've examined the evidence, analyzed the claims, even dared to peek into the scientific possibilities. And yet we're left with this lingering sense of wonder, of possibility. And isn't that the beauty of a good mystery?
It's that spark of what if that keeps us coming back for more. So while we may never know for sure if our friend from the future is the real deal, one thing's for certain, he's given us plenty to think about. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there in the vast expanse of time and space, someone's listening, a knowing smile spreading across their face.